big laser bot. Yeah.
I will remembered.
But yeah, like I said, I just safety bolted the shot because exactly that reason.
Yeah, I'll add it now. Now that it's got a live reason and people will want it. We weren't planning on getting out the ship very often during the fight anyway.
We die like men.
You're either in it and it's either a coffin or a chariot to victory. Don't need rocket launcher redundancy.
No, I liked it. It was fun. Yes, but it's like okay. I need to hold it steady to that, and I need to turn, and yeah, it's boring. Yes, that is turning. You're turning it. You're turning it on.
Doesn't it flip sometimes as well, though? Doesn't it flip sometimes, though? So I guess it does turn.
No.
I think some people don't get that.
Yeah, I was working down the crater and then realized, wait a minute, it's not taking that deep of a cut as I want. So I just turn it around so it's working up the crater. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just glad that like I got it and it started mining. It's like that's disgusting the amount of ores you get. Now, I might use up that much thallium in advance. In professional chips, I mean.
All right. I think everything is up. Let's see. John goes here. Bentley, can you say hello? Make sure. Jongo, can you hear
Mic
Bentley?
test.
Yep, we'll do some mic tests. You're fairly quiet just in your
I
tone.
might have to turn that up a bit. I normally just have it low because sometimes people come in.
Yeah, so and everybody's voice is different. The microphones are different, so they will be more than happy to tell us if they can't hear. We know we can hear Vega. He is a regular. You can hear both of them. Excellent.
See.
All right. Yeah, I use a bit of software that lets me kind of peel out all the different input streams, so I can crank Discord high pretty far up without making the game windows obnoxious. So it works pretty well. All right. So we have here with us today Bentley, champion from Seal Club. His team did not carry him through. He definitely was a major. You did. You showed.
I got us through the door. I set it up and they knocked it
out. You were in a couple of rounds. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about armor, which is something I really. It's not that I don't understand it. It's that I only understand the surface layers of it, and I don't understand necessarily how damage propagates, or how the varying types of armor negate varying types of guns. So I'd like to go through some of the basics first, because most ships nowadays don't have any armor, and when they slap one plate of armor, it doesn't seem to do anything. So can you give us an overview of how damage and armor applies and those sorts of just kind of general scope things to start with, and then we can dig into what just kind of the nuances that you figured out.
Well, back in I guess a little bit of history, because it's like changed quite a lot. But when I started the game, it was just what was referenced as big plate health, which was just, the biggest, largest dirtiest plate that you could squeeze your ship into. Usually made of char. There wasn't really any aluminium because it wasn't available. And also, laser guns were not in the game. They were buggy. They just lost their ammo. They used to have recharging ammo, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. It never worked. Yeah, no railguns because didn't have access to the moon materials, and plasmas were really bad. Like, if you don't like them now, you wouldn't have liked them then. So everything was just these little like spam frigates of autocannon that normally just packed as much of them as possible, and was just like a lot of boxes. And then, well, for us, the learning experience came when we had Armor War with TCC. They had a lot of good designers, like just grinding away on the PTU, and on the PTU, lasers were working too. So they were much more preference, like a much more higher preference as a weapon. So when they came over to Armor to mess with us, I think it was Abominator that started that fight just by swearing at them in their Discord, and they thought he was an Armor mercenary, so they decided to just come and wage a war on us. They came out, they had what you now know as like the default meta ship, which is the big long nose, absolutely disgusting amount of laser cannons, and then you put some on like good practice in the pilot seat, or back then it was Raurog, is the name I remember, being really scary. And they made absolute mincemeat of our like big plate health boxes because we had absolutely no voxel ammo in them at all.
Spice Rub.
Also,
Spice Rub? Spice Rub says PTU scrubs.
Yeah, we used to play a bit more live, but we did used to go on it, and if we ever did, Spice Rub would let us know just how disappointed he was with us. He went on there a few times too to fix his heat, though. I remember that. People like Marshall is I don't think a name a lot of people know, but I've heard mentioned a lot of times. He made a lot of TCC ships back in the day, and if you look at Kyoki, Toon Boost, Nick, I think he's in NHR now, and I think he made the Mollet. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone can. But yeah, he sort of made that long nose PTU shape, along with Faraway and Kai. They were also using it too. We just didn't have them on live, so we had to adapt. I think we switched to microfighters to take advantage of the fact that not all of them were Raurog, or as good at practice to anyone else.
All right, so you're saying right off the bat, the theory was the larger the plate, the more, I'm going to say, hit points it had, and so it could absorb. Yeah. Okay.
The game can't handle having voxel damage happen all the time. It's like a limitation. So all the plates have a HP pool before they start taking damage.
I think I have seen
the difference in collision damage. When you collide with something, the part either A, disappears completely because it's gone, it's dead, or it falls off, but it's still intact and you can blueprint it back into your ship. But
gotcha.
With weapons damage, it's more of a HP thing. Each shot will do damage. It will decrease the magic health, as I like to call it, of the plate. And then once that's gone, then it actually starts to be a voxel game, or a vertex game, or whatever.
I got you. That's why when you sometimes can hit somebody and you've hit them, but there's no visible damage. It's because you haven't crossed that magic.
You haven't cracked it yet.
That crossed that magic threshold yet.
Yeah.
Hello, Nick.
Heyo.
He says he's in NHR, but Dankit created the Molot.
Dankit. They've got a lot of designers. I remember Marshall from back in the day, though. That's also why he shit talks. He knows he can make good ships.
Well, it's not shit talk if you can back it up. That's just talking.
Yeah, shit talk about all that shit. Yeah, when it was just autocannons, you didn't need voxel. The autocannons are so puny that if you just brute forced your way through it, with more plates, everything was fine. Spice Rub will happily tell you about the shit brick we used to fly called the Metabus, which was just nothing but the biggest plates on it possible. Disgustingly huge glass like canopy on the front, which gave you quite a lot of vision. There was also a lot of head glitches back then, which was quite nasty. You couldn't really cockpit snipe people anymore. Like back then, people would used to like stuff their heads into triangles and all sorts of.
Oh, I
stuff.
gotcha. Yeah, make your model kind of merge
But
with
still,
something else.
big plate if you see what I mean. Versus like now, that you look at glass, even though glass is terrible as armor, you still stack it to get voxel, just in case, just to make sure that stray shots.
Okay.
The laser needs to travel still.
Yep,
Yes.
once it's broken.
So here's the question: is we've gone from those giant plates, but sometimes now we'll still see weird decorative triangles and things like that. Is that sort of the same concept as you're just trying to stack some HP in areas you really can't put anything else? Is that the...
What do you mean by?
You'll
Do
see
you mean the actual decorative triangles, or do you mean those big wedges?
those big wedge things? Yeah.
No, those are just really big plates. I don't know if you've ever looked at the weight of them. They're heavy as fuck.
Okay, so that's just they have a ton of that magic of your magic
you can
HP.
stack a lot of HP, a lot of like actual like mass for which the bullets travel through, and it's all segmented, so you can sort of like layer it and do nice stuff. And it's not a box; it's actually got an angle to it, so you can at the very least try to make your ship look like reasonably slim.
And you're talking angles there. Does is there deflection off of armor like there is in some games, or
see, that's where the whole stacking plates vertically comes from. Like, there seems to be this effect that like makes it so that like the amount of mass like taken away from a shot when it passes through is less than if it was like at a 45-degree angle or flush with like the thinnest part of the plate.
because I've heard some things about that railing armor on the front is really only good for straight-on shots, and if you get too far at an angle, it's not as effective. So the angle of impact must make some sort of a difference.
Yeah, in terms of like how much material there is to pass through.
Oh, I
And then
understand.
there is something, and there is also something in the calculation. Like it seems like every plate has a plane in which it likes to be. It's better at being struck at. It's sort of like a soft. I consider it a half-ass way at deflection. Like they've tried to make it so that at the very least, when like a shot hits a plate at say 45 degrees, it will have less penetration effect because of it, when in reality it should like actually like change its trajectory a little, maybe like bounce off like actual angled armor. But it's sort of like a soft way to do that. They're basically nerfing the damage you take if you correctly angle plates.
I got
And
you.
then it's a bit abusable too, though, because then you just stack them completely on their thinnest side, and you get like a very strong resistance to shots.
Praxis is saying more than 10 degrees for railing armor, and it doesn't work at all.
Yeah, those are small though, like small base HP, and they also like a little component that falls off. I feel like once a part also falls off, it just isn't there to provide it.
I gotcha. But it makes sense that, when you increase the angle, say of a railing armor, and you guys are doing what, I guess the common is 72 centimeters. It doesn't take very long before you don't have 72 centimeters of protection. You've only got 24. Once you're outside that 10 degrees, you're not shooting through the length of the armor anymore. You're almost shooting it horizontally because of how narrow it is. If it were a plate, it'd be a different story. There'd be a lot more plate, but those railing armors it makes sense on those railing armors that a few degrees makes a big difference. Now, the concept behind those is that a rail only hits one of those at a time. Is that kind of how it works? Is a railgun only hits
explodes one of them at a time? Yeah.
It only explodes one of them at a
Blows it
time.
apart the piece.
Got
So
you.
the damage doesn't spread. So
Okay.
if you just
I shall demonstrate.
if you stacked 72 plates, you would get a similar effect versus say a load of 144s.
Give me a second.
When the 144, well, I guess the best way to put it is that there's very limited amount of plates that won't get cracked by a rail cannon, so you kind of want to just focus on making the hole that it makes
Hold on a second, Vega. Let me bring that up.
Least impactful as possible. Otherwise,
Discord. That's too small. Too many windows. Need a bigger screen. Alright. Alright, what are we looking at, Vega?
So this is one of Happy Trigger's armor test rigs for ablative armor. And so one of his examples is of course the railing. That's Gerodium, the gold standard for ablative armor. There's some other interesting armors, like the more modern one, or the more meta one, I guess, is 36 centimeter Oninum.
Practice.
Don't actually have it set up here anywhere.
Let me see if I can bring up the chat window. Oh, there we go. Hey.
Oh yeah, of course. Let me bring that up too.
Alright. Hello, Praxis.
I'm used to this, seeing this little window, don't worry.
Alright, so this is only going to show us. What are we doing here?
It's S is seeing.
Yeah, I know. Makes me uncomfortable.
It's not you who has throw the control, so...
Spice Rub says it's not ablative armor, it's just bad game mechanics.
Yeah. Incomplete is a term I prefer, but yeah.
How
Concept, though, will still stay the same though. We're still
No.
going to be limiting certain damages, but
so what is
you
if this
can
is
push
the
it.
if this is the incomplete version of the mechanic, what would be the more complete?
I mean, like I said, deflection could actually be reworked to be a bit more realistic. That
I
could
mean,
be
what
the
War
first
Thunder
one, I
does.
think. There's a lot of damage models out there used by other games, and I'm pretty sure some of them are open source. Like, I think there's a few ways to do it. It's just how much can they push the engine and their architecture, I guess.
Alright, so you're shooting, these are not railings, these are just plates.
These are just plates, yes.
And what are they made? These are Terodium?
These are Terodium 72 centimeter.
Okay.
Same as a railing.
Then why do we use railings?
Because
Easier
it's
to
less
place.
mass.
It's
as
what?
well.
Less mass.
You've got the little corners cut off, so they weigh a little more, a little less.
I
If you actually
gotcha.
if you wanted to avoid the whole, your front of your ship looking like a gangster with a grill, like you can just use the little 12 by 12 sticks.
And
Yeah,
if you
a normal
wanted
plate.
to... So there's one thing that's slightly more efficient than the plates or the railings of Terodium. It's actually railings made from Oninum, 36 centimeters.
And that's more efficient, that's a better use of
It's-
weight versus armor?
Yes, for weight it's better, for cost it's worse.
Well, yeah, I mean, owning them is ridiculous.
Yeah, because if you use it in
Surfacer.
a fight where you get vouchers and it's free, then the cost of the ship doesn't matter.
Or you have a surfacer.
Well,
Yes, but you still need to fly out to the moon to get Oninum.
alright, Praxis says the railings are also easier to bolt,
Yes, they
and
have
you can
this-
make them out of 36 centimeter of Exorium and it will also work. Oninum isn't that hard to get. No, Oninum isn't. But it's effort
Exorium-
to get. It's not hard, but it is effort, which is expensive.
So,
Effort is expensive.
Exorium is... Yes, Exorium also works. It's cheaper, but also heavier.
And with these little 1 kiloton ships, that with you putting a couple of hundred railings on them, that's gonna make a difference.
Yeah, versus a couple hundred... Yes.
they are
There's also-
heavy for the amount of space they take up, though. Like,
Yeah,
the moment you
there's-
try to actually coat a whole ship in them, you're probably going to be quite slow and
Yeah,
handle that
they're-
dog.
Like, I tried basically every plate, every decorative plate there is in the SSC. And found some interesting ones, actually.
Now is it let's see, yours averages 3 point. Hold on a second. 3.2 Avenger has 300 tons of railings. That's a lot of railings.
Yeah. I actually avoided that on my YIF because I didn't want the railing weight because I was expecting to be shot from more angles. So I actually went with another plate that did the job, but not as good as railings, but was lighter.
So these are floor mats, right?
Yes, aluminum floor mats.
Ooh, evil.
What?
That right there is historically a very nasty plate.
Why is that? Explain.
So, if I know correctly, the old floor mats, if you made them arcanium, which was really light and had a good armor value at the time, I'm assuming, when they were destroyed, they didn't actually get rid of the voxel that they occupied in the space, so they left like a screen of voxels.
Mm.
So even if like shots penetrated and killed them, like
They were visibly gone, but
would
they were
still,
mathematic.
they would still provide like a mesh.
Mathematically, they were still there.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
what, like one of the gladiators used
Yeah.
aggressively.
Just
Nicklick says
I got
Lucium
patched.
Exudium will also Lucium and Exudium will also work. He doesn't remember.
no, I
Anything
don't
heavy.
think Exutium works on, at least for this match for floor
Not for floor mats, Christ.
railings.
I don't think floor mats really work for anything as stopping a shot, but they will cushion.
No,
This is
floor
like
mats-
this effect does also
No,
like if you drain enough of the actual like impact energy of the shot and then it's breaks through the thing and then still continues through. As long as the big plate health of the plate behind is big enough to survive the softened shot, like you also avoid the same problem that you're
Yeah,
avoiding.
the thing
So-
that makes floor mats so interesting is the angle top. Oops.
The angle at which they still are effective is what you're saying. That's why
Yes,
you've turned these.
If they're on it, right, they're in one plane. They're effective
what
to
Spice was talking
45
about.
degrees off angle.
No, what about 45 degrees? The other angle, like laterally, as opposed
That's what I'm
to.
saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you do it across the flat top surface, it will get obliterated,
Oh,
supposedly.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about by that deflection mechanic with voxel armor. You see that thin side, that's where it gets the most voxel protection. And so as you're turning it around at 45-degree angles and keeping it on that thin side, it's always going to have maximum voxel like reduction. The moment you actually turn it more towards the flatter sides, which are like wider, it will actually just massively reduce to the point where like even a pistol bullet will go through it probably.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, there's less. I'm gonna call them. Well, we'll call them voxels. There's less voxels along the route of the ammunition.
Well, that's the thing. The real deflection.
Oh well, yeah, I
like,
would.
Well, like on tank armor, the way that actually works is that by having a plate at an angle,
Oh yeah,
you are actually along the cross reference and increasing how much it passes through. Like you're able to do that. That's how
Right.
it actually works. And you wouldn't like actually slap like a big mass of armor in front of it because it would become more brittle and it would actually like seriously take more damage from like continuous like firepower. So
Yeah,
like,
hence,
and then you'd also have shots like actually spark off, or at the very least, if they penetrated, they would go in a slightly different direction so that you could, maneuver the shots away from like where it explodes. But
right.
you
But we're
can't
not.
actually
There's
do
no
that.
there's no deflection of force here. It's
Yeah,
just.
there's no changing of the raycast of the bullet. Like it always goes straight. It always goes on its path. Like nothing stops it other than big plate health and the mass.
That probably cuts down on the mathematics engine side quite a
knows?
bit.
Who
Because
knows?
imagine,
'Cause-
imagine if you have a 30 cannon ship at full auto, and you're shooting at an angled surface. That's a lot of extra math for
yeah,
the
but you're
engine to
getting
hold
that
up
anyway.
with.
And they're talking about adding even more computationally like complex things like a lot of things anyway. So I'm assuming that they have the ability to scale it. I think it's just development time. Like they need to have people with programming skill, like just endlessly bugging out, cleaning the bugs out of the system until it works. Like it runs on miracles and spit, basically.
Hopes and
they can do
dreams.
it. I think they can do it. Like I've seen other games do more, and it doesn't have to be like super realistic. It just has to be simulated and not random, and as Spice would put it, not janky. It makes sense.
Hello, Ace Crystal. He says the voxel multiplier only works on a continuous single item depth through the material. Only works on continuous single item depth. The bullet may not even exit and re-enter the same object or it will not work. That's why railing is less efficient in my opinion.
Yeah,
It just needs to be small plates on the concept. Railings are just the min-max. Like, I want to.
You just do railings.
Rails.
It's the same
Yeah.
depth, but a little less weight.
I mean, you could just stack loads of more voxel armor if you wanted. Like I said, once the railgun actually does damage to the plate, it chips voxel. It's just you're going to get massive chunks out of your ship taken out each time.
Gotcha.
Versus, just a little railing. That's why I call them sacrifice plates.
Yeah, I would call those sacrificial armor. Yeah, that's what I've heard them called ablative, and I don't really think they're ablative, or
They're
reactive.
not reactive.
Yeah, they're not reactive. No. Make them out of nergite and have them explode a little bit. So when they do get hit, they're gone.
Yeah, have them push the fucking railgun round like 45 degrees into your teammate.
Or it just negates the round, but it and all of the adjacent ones are also gone.
When it detects torpedoes about to impact, it blows up an explosive below it to shoot the plate.
Well, I mean that's what reactive armor actually
Yes.
is.
That's exactly.
It's All right. Now we're talking. We've talked a little about old school armor. What is some of the research you've done through this to figure out all of this, or is it just essentially what Happy's got here, where you're just shooting random components in the test mode?
You've got to duplicate it on the outside the SSC too, because
It's not always the same.
It's not always the same. It's not as consistent.
Okay. Now,
speed also affects it too.
ship traveling speed?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's intended or if it's accidental, but like you can imagine as you're moving and it's lagging around, if like it crosses across like two parts, sometimes the shot will just stop penning. Like it will like suddenly be traveling through its target, but because the target was moving, I guess you could say the shot would drift and then drift into another part, recalculate the fucking HP again, and then just disappear. And sometimes it would just go through your ship if the desync's bad, but like you can like actually see like some big plates like taking more shots when they're like broken when they're moving. Like it just sort of causes the shots to phase out. Other than the fact you're also harder to hit as well. But
Yeah, well, there's that. Spice Rub says the armor calculation page defines projectile energy as projectile mass plus velocity. So who knows what the different speeds will do? And I'm pretty sure relative speed matters. So the objects.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Spice Rub, because I saw that too, and I was fucking confused as to if we didn't know how to test it like effectively, reliably, but there's no like definition on the wiki as like, is the projectile velocity just the stat that they've given to the gun, to the projectile? Because if it is, it's always going to be 800 for autos, 800 for plasma, 1,200 for laser, and I cannot remember what the fucking railgun flies at.
Faster than a laser, that's for sure.
Yeah. But if it also takes ship movement into account, that means you could add 150 onto all of that by flying towards someone, and then you could add another 150 onto that if they're flying towards you. Which would then make everything do more damage.
Well, yeah, you could negate part of it or double it, essentially.
Yeah, or run away.
Yeah, fly away.
It might be.
Well, I mean, flying away seems to be the...
It claims muzzle velocity 1,400.
Now, that's muzzle velocity. Is there a loss in velocity along the flight path, or?
And if there is, it doesn't factor in because all the guns are limited to 1,000 meters anyway. We're technically always firing at point blank range.
Okay, so everything is point blank range, even if you're 1,000 meters out, and then it's a hard stop at 1,000 meters.
Yeah, I think on the outdated wiki, I think it says that the railgun has like a range of 14k, but you can't actually shoot that far.
Cannot
Yeah.
shoot that.
And the
Nothing
laser designator
happens.
goes 5 kilometers, but it doesn't go beyond 1,000.
It designator
Suppose-
doesn't go 5 kilometers. The designator goes 1 kilometer that you can track, or 1 kilometer you can actually designate.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, there's a
3
hosting limit.
kilometers
a
is
bubble.
what it tracks, what the tracker tracks in the SSC, and 5 kilometers is what the wiki claims.
So ranges are not really a factor, honestly, other than accuracy.
So plasmas are the slowest, correct?
No,
No.
they're the same as autos.
Okay,
It just says in the SSC that they're still 600.
okay.
The heat, they had their damage and their speed increased in the same patch as the heat. update.
Gotcha.
They got the
Now,
same speed.
is damage essentially a flat or damage amount, or is it a random damage amount? You know, within a range, or how is damage determined?
It's that calculation Spice mentions, so it's like they are all flat damage like by the end of it, because as far as we know, there's no way to change that. So it is like a fixed amount. You can reliably shoot something in the SSC and be like, okay, this plate takes 32 shots. I think one of them does.
32.
This gun or that.
Jeez.
Yeah, I think the big clam one can take like 32 autocannons when it's like a jar. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I used them.
So let's see. What's he say? Spice says damage is projectile energy. Oh, is equal to. So it's just those are interchangeable terms essentially. Projectile energy and interesting.
Force, energy, power, like how much it damages it.
Speed, power.
No.
And that's what I mean by I feel like they can do more computationally excessive stuff, because if you look at all the math that they're supposedly running on their end, Jesus Christ, like they can definitely have plenty of levers to tweak, to make it good.
All right. Now
It's still good.
how does now we've only talked about really armor penetration, as far as guns are concerned. But is there damage propagation like there is in a collision, or is it solely
No, I think it's just the projectile traveling along its route and any parts it interacts with along the way.
I got you. And I assume once a round has expelled all of its energy, it doesn't necessarily. All right. So let's say you have a stack of plates. How do we determine how
if you stack
deep
enough
the
plates and like fire through it, you can literally like count the shots it takes to break the pen, and then you'll see the hole with the plate behind it not undamaged, and you'll shoot the same spot again, and then that plate will break.
So there's no penetration until the surface
HP
layer
goes.
is gone.
Until the HP of the plate is gone.
So there's no penetration without the full plate being destroyed.
If you took a stacked of 432s, the big ones, made them char, just stacked them in a massive grid, I think they take a few shots from even like a rail or laser to like the side, like a flat surface. You can actually see like the shatter effect of the railgun, like, and how it would, but it would not like deform into like the other plates behind it. Do you see what I mean? There would just be a flat surface of the other plate.
Right. So it doesn't. There's no damage to the under plates until the above plate is completely gone. So there's no voxel. Even if it's showing damage on the surface plate, like there's holes in it, there's no damage on the ones underneath it.
Well, there is damage, but like if the damage doesn't break the HP, it just won't have a visible effect on it. Like it will not apply the voxel.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
So as you can see here, it's the biggest plate in the game.
Hold on. Let me
Rail
switch.
cannon.
I gotta switch. I'm not always watching yours. Let's figure out where it is. Give me a sec. Gotta move some stuff around. I show that you have a stream paused.
Oh,
Let's see.
I have 4 nice errors. Give it
There we go. Let me switch Discord.
Hold
Nope.
off a second.
Yeah, we're all familiar with those. Sasquatch was telling me that there's a way to make those just not even generate anymore. I haven't seen what it is yet.
I stream my screen and just accept that I don't have sound, just to avoid that.
Okay, so here's the biggest plate. 1 rail cannon. Doesn't look like anything has changed, right? Irresolute looks fine.
See it? Do you see the KV 00? So just nothing's gone now. Look.
So there's nothing.
Available.
There's nothing
Nothing
happened.
missing.
Nothing missing. Nothing's been taken from
However,
that.
a rail cannon has impacted that plate. Now.
Because that's the magic HP you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, and now we shoot it twice.
There you go.
Gotcha. Ace Crystal, let's see what he says. Hold on. Spice Rub says the formula isn't public, yep, but the rail's mass is 125 and the energy is 12,250, so math it out, I guess. Ace says most plates do keep having an amount of HP, though. I'm not sure how that interacts with new follow-up shots. My guess is that it gets subtracted from every new shot on the plate, but it also goes through. Interesting.
The railgun is a very weird beast. It has like it has some things on it that like other guns don't do, like it's charging, and it has a splash effect as well, but like only seems to apply to like the point of contact. Like it's really bizarre. They fucked with that gun quite a lot. I feel like. I don't think it used to behave like that. I've got a feeling that back in CA it might have behaved a little differently, and it got changed. See that so you would expect like one of those heat sinks to be like half destroyed, wouldn't you?
Yeah, sort of.
Like the one behind it, you'd expect there to be more of a actual degree of destruction, but as you can see, look, it's just fine because.
Heatsink's just.
But it's
gone
damaged.
until
It's damaged. It's got less magic health. But it's fine.
When you say it like that, it's got less magic health.
It feels bad. It feels bad. It's like ow.
The cube heatsink performs the best against rail cannons for some reason.
Because it's a perfect square. Maybe it's like giving maximum voxel in every direction.
She says shoot a heatsink. Ace says shoot a heatsink directly on a corner. See if you can align one. Are you saying like
45 degrees,
an
45 degrees.
Yeah, an intersection of two sides or an intersection of three sides?
No, he just means like make it like a diamond rather than like a square.
Oh, I see.
I think that's what I interpreted. I figured he meant rotate it. Shoot it right on the corner, like you're going right through like the diagonal axis.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
the
does
longest.
actually get that.
That's what I was thinking. If you rotated it 45 degrees in two axis, it would actually be the longest dimension that a cube can have.
It applies to all guns. Like for instance, lasers. If you look at their numbers, they just have really high damage, but fuck all voxel damage. Like they don't have like a splash or a fracture effect. They just go through in a line. It's kind of why you need to have voxel with laser, you know, because you're just not going to. There's not really like many plates that could sustain a barrage of lasers for long before they cracked, and then you are just relying on the materials voxel penetration to help you out. Other guns, on the other hand, seem to be more magic, like HP based, especially like autocannons. Like autocannons do fuck all.
Again, it's just.
I don't know. The Scipion used them to pretty good success in this.
Yeah, to get rid of the railings.
Well, he used them against the little ships.
I made the ship. I can show it to you in a minute.
Yeah, it was successful against those little. I'm gonna call them mosquitoes. El Moscas.
Mosquito. I can't remember. I'm just butchering the accent.
They even made like a nice decal of El Mosco.
El Mosco, yeah. So, I'm assuming it's the same term as mosquito without the little at the end. El Mosco.
Plasmas sort of work the same as railguns, honestly, just smaller. So they have like the same pros and cons. Very high like energy damage, like they really chunk the HP, but they have this weird fracture penetration. Yeah, they have this weird fracture penetration that can sort of like be negated through smaller plates.
I'm with you, Freelancer. I like autocannons solely because there's like a built-in amount of spread. Like I don't have to be quite as good at aim with autocannons.
I love my autocannons.
Right?
They need a little bit of love.
They do, but I like them because my aim isn't great. So I need a lot of A lot of wiggle room downrange.
Just get closer.
Accuracy by volume.
You got combo him with plasma, trust me.
Ace and Sega.
Once you go plasma auto, you don't go back. They're great.
Yeah,
Nothing makes an opponent panic quite like plasma auto.
I don't know. This getting hit in the cockpit glass with lasers, I think, is the most debilitating. They cause my frame rate to drop. I can't see anything.
I actually don't know what the proper angles to interest to put it keep on its corner.
That looks pretty good. Close enough for government work. Oh, I don't know how you guys spend all your time in here.
It's like the game loop.
I avoid this particular part of the game with at all
Give it
costs.
time.
I have given it time.
You'll fly one ship you really, really want to like, and you won't like it, and you'll want to build it yourself.
So that how many did that go through? That went through a ton.
No, we have to have a comparison.
I think I'll just pay somebody to build ships. That'll be easier.
Boom.
So that's. They need to actually fire them in succession before the.
Oh, it's like watching a drunk person walk down the street. So how many did it go through?
So here are 5 left. Here's 1 left. This one was.
So it went through 5 of the diagonals, and
Only 3 of the.
and only 3 of those.
No, it hit the side actually. I think if it hits center mass, it actually performs worse. Because the thing is, heat sinks are hollow.
Not if you actually slice them up, though. And their heat dissipation actually like reduces based on how much mass you remove as well.
So it went through the exact same number, 5 either way.
No, here it's 3 left. Before it was 5 left.
That's what I mean. It's now the same as them on their angles. There was 5 of each.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hit it on the corners,
On the flat side, yes.
well, you know what? That almost makes sense. If it's considering them hollow, there would be more pixels on an edge than there would be in the.
Solid, you can.
Maybe it gives them hollow right at the point of impact.
Ace says, "Can you shoot the smallest portion through a heat sink? Can you shoot like the smallest portion through a heat sink? Fracture."
I think that's what you did when you did it to the side. You hit it
Oh,
on
he
the
did.
edge.
You're talking about a glancing. I see. I don't think it's going to matter on those. The cube heat sinks are hollow in the middle, so you have to exit and re-enter inside the object. Oh, I see what you mean. So what Ace is saying is, if you shoot the middle of the heatsink, it's hitting the heatsink, entering a hollow space, which it considers an exit, and then it has to re-enter the heatsink again. Whereas if you hit the edge of it, it stays within the actual structure of the heatsink.
Yes, it is probably why heatsink beams perform. But yeah, it's hollow. The proof is.
You're trying to put that inside like a crate?
It won't let you.
It will let me.
I've tried it. Where's the hollow bit? This one meant
There
no.
you go.
Oh, I'm so for abusing that.
It's actually smaller than it looks. It's like a 36 by 36 cube inside. You can actually get.
What did I
Oh,
tell you?
here's Pegrin.
Hey, 4 point.
Hey, bud. We were just talking armor, and here's Bentley's with us, and Vegas here, so I thought we'd invite you and see if you had any. Pinku is better than Pegrin.
Of course.
Of course.
He like spams that in chat.
He's your biggest fan. He's your biggest fan.
So are you trying to fill the heatsink?
He wants to see if it will hit that. He
It
wants to see if it will
will
destroy
hit
the
that.
plate. Yeah.
It's just proof that you can put stuff inside a heatsink, but for some reason here's less space than on that side, so it's not even symmetrical.
What's the inside? They didn't care. You're not supposed to be in there.
You can do that with crates too.
Yeah, you can put. I think you can put a propellant tank in a crate, can't you?
You can
What?
put a small propellant tank in a large one.
Oh, in a large
Yeah,
propellant
yeah.
tank.
Yeah, I was gonna say a crate might be a bit of a push. That's
Actually, heatsinks might fit in.
you can barely get
Yes, the
72s in there.
heatsink fits in a crate.
Oh, the heatsink will fit in a crate, though.
Oh no, it didn't crate them. No, crates and heatsinks are, I think they're the same. Ah, actually, maybe. Yes, it will. An ore cube would also fit inside a crate.
The trick is you could wire a heat sink, though.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't do it though. The moment one foot fails, just yank
The
everything off.
moment you have to fix anything, you're hosed.
That's kind of how I look at all ships, though. The moment I have to fix anything, I'm hosed. So that's not out of the ordinary.
Bullshit.
Some are more fixable than others.
Yeah. And by fix, I just mean put in the ship hanger and push the repair button.
I mean, there's like some people play. Someone said once you can't fix double chip YOLO in space, but that's nonsense.
You're talking 2 chips in 1 slot?
Yes.
Alright, so
Why'd you do that though?
if heats, how do you do that? Is that what you asked?
No, why would you do that though? That's just asking for it to
I,
jank your ship.
Simple.
That
It's more.
sounds close to when you get duplicated fucking lights.
it seems, a lot of that just seems asking for trouble.
Yeah, some things are asking for trouble.
Yes. But hey, I mean, double chip YOLO in universe.
Yeah, that seems, that just seems like a bad idea.
It's actually a great idea. You get twice the YOLO density for your
It's like
racks.
someone is addicted to YOLO in their ships.
Why do you hate me, good praxis?
What do you mean I have a YOLO problem? It's only like 300 chips on one of my ships.
That's funny.
It makes your ship laggy, man.
It,
Has a runtime.
I mean, it's. I never paid attention
alright.
to it. It's
Oh
like,
mate, it's like Ghidoras start to like shit themselves after 40 minutes of usage. Got so much YOLO on it,
kind of doesn't really.
especially for people who
Takes
have
a
bad
minute.
internet.
Yeah, I think the internet really is the old kicker there.
Yeah.
Like a salvager who like doesn't have the most reliable internet, and like he can't even operate a Ghidorah without his computer smoking. Like, but he can operate like my large miner that has no YOLO. It's really mainly the YOLO and all the stuff it's trying to do in one time.
Interesting.
You gotta be a little
use-
careful.
Oh, so much
Gotta figure
lag.
out, like a budget.
Not actually the amount of chips inside, that's just all the other nonsense that's here.
Praxis. Praxis says he doesn't hate you. He just knows that Pinku is better than you.
In what way, bro?
Man's hiding high on his victory.
Oh, there's so much lag. Why am I getting so much lag? Collectors. Collectors are why I'm getting lag.
How is he better? Give me a reason.
I think we also made a YOLO lag thing once on the PTU. I think it was Caden that made it.
Yeah,
Caden and THK.
I know you can use YOLO lag to search for other ships.
Hmm?
If YOLO does
Yes, you
check
can.
itself if it's lagging, and if it gets close to a different ship with running YOLO, you can see that, oh, there's a ship there.
Bentley, you remember Caden's the science machine, the original one, that had the wall of YOLO to scan for ships when the lights started blinking or something?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that thing. Yeah.
And
God.
that used
Because it was
YOLO.
text panels as well. You could use like even because it had so many text panels. If you like told them all to like try and blink at the same time, you could actually like see the lag like affecting the like rippling down like as it got that further and further through the YOLO.
I mean,
So
that-
like everything would like on the end of the spiral of the YOLO screen would just be like like about like half a second slower than the other side. You could like see it rippling across. You could like do other things to like lower the FPS of the game, and you'd see it slow down and stuff.
I mean, even this counter here is not counting smoothly because it's 4 chips running in this instance.
So here's a if we get back to armor here,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the strategies aside from railing armor that get used in not only tournament ships but in any sort of PvP ship that's outside of railing armor that actually are effective? Like we know about stacking glass to layering glass or real long sheets of glass or the railing armors. What else is there? You said the
Plates.
is it still big plates or is
Yeah,
it
the big plate health points for like the core armor because obviously you want to make sure anything that your more specifically designed plates fail to, catch are caught by something and not just your prop tank or whatever. So like having a core is normally a good shout, and then past that you kind of just want to you can kind of use any plate you want, but you want to make sure that you know like which angle it absorbs the most damage through voxel, and make sure that those lines are along the lines that you're going to get shot from, which is less armor and more just knowing about.
and
how
this is
combat
this is
actually
sort of how we ended up with the orbiting fighting tactic, is by attempting to layer all of our armor in one direction and then only expose that side to the enemy, right?
Yeah,
To
the
your
percentage,
opponent.
the percentage decreases as the further around the ship it goes from the front. Generally.
Gotcha. Now, what about alloys versus ores, and what are some of the?
Well, Exutium was cool for a while, but then now it's like stupidly expensive because Exorium's stupidly expensive. So I wouldn't say that anymore. Fucking Corium's way too much of a hassle to actually like produce for yourself or like on a regular basis unless you like live out in a station where it's made.
You put so much scorn in that.
Nothing but Kerasium and Numerium for like the rest of your days to make it.
You put so much. There was so much venom in that statement. Like live in a station.
No, I do live in a station. But like, yeah, like it's quite a limiting way to live if you I don't know. It's not that great if you know what I mean. Like it shaves a couple of kilograms off. It's good for like the ticket ships. Or like maybe like a really big ship where you have to like fight for every single kilogram that you have to fit into the budget. But
Spice Rub
really
says
expensive.
orbiting happens naturally. It has nothing to do with the armor. I gotcha.
No, yeah, obviously. That's
I mean,
why people
you've got to
put the
keep your.
armor on the front. Yeah.
That's it. I guess they are mutually inclusive to each other.
Or you just don't like we did.
Yeah, you just didn't. But none of your ships seem to have any of that.
What you mean inside? No, they were more.
Well, I'm sure they were heavier on the front, but they weren't.
Yeah,
You
but we were
didn't.
flying in straight lines, and we assumed at the very least we'd be shot at. As we were
Right.
coming
You
in.
seem to be better as a whole armored all the way around.
As the number of people increases in a fight, you're gonna find yourself just always getting shot in the sides more. Like always. Like it stops being an if and becomes a when. And
Yeah.
once you get to that point, and then you can make an argument for like a big box with lots of armor everywhere. But you would have to sacrifice if you wanted to maintain speed. You'd have to sacrifice it from the front, because that's where most of it goes currently. And small ships, though, they turn fast, they move fast, they can pull range very quickly. You're going to be spending a lot more time with your face towards whoever's shooting you than, say, like a 3,000-ton ship. Like, if you look at, like, Nick's 3,000-ton, like, that he flew, that thing had, like, a massive buffer on the front that actually went, like, on multiple degrees around, so that even shots to the sides from the front, like, were getting caught. Had way more, like, you know, omnidirectional armor than, like, the more narrow ships you saw at the tournament, which were much more front focused.
Yeah, some of them were very front focused. But to be honest, there was less of that than I expected to see. You know, there was your team, which just completely just didn't subscribe to that for this particular tournament. And I would say that Ouroboros is the only team that went full in on the flat ships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As he
thin.
likes to say, you get armor from one side. That's what Happy Trigger always likes to say.
Yeah, you only get enough for there's only enough armor to protect one thing. So, now is there any? Now this is just an uneducated question. Is there any advantage to layering plates with a gap in between or on directly on top of each other? Does that make any difference?
Explosives, it does.
Slightly, actually.
So
Yeah,
if
Really, Vega?
With the floor mats, what I actually observed is you could make them out of Daltium if you had the floor mats have their hitboxes intersect slightly. If the rail hit exactly perfectly between both at once, it would stop with Daltium. So I guess horizontally, yes.
Yeah, splash effect of the rail as well, which seems to just knock off small parts around the area it hits. That can also be spaced out as well. Like, some ships you'll see have like spaced armor like around the thrusters. I normally don't have the weight limit to warrant it, but some people do. They'll have actual like a shroud. You know what I mean? They'll actually beam it up, have a little gap between the armor plate and the thruster, just to make sure that like when that rail hits, the game just doesn't decide that it was going to damage the thruster anyway.
The thruster has also now lost its bolt and has durability.
Squad leader Spice Rub flew like 6 colors of ships. He had all
One for
sorts of
every
colored
occasion.
ships. Yeah, every time he showed up, it was a different color. But normally it was just a single rail ship. I loved Spice Rub's ships, the really strong use of the strafing, the vertical strafing thrusters. That was fun to watch. He looked really, really hard to pin down using those strafing thrusters. And the Ace Crystal ships seemed to use a similar theory, though they only had a single direction. Like they had triangles pointing down, but they did not have the matching triangles pointing up. So I think that was a direct, at least Spice Rub ships I think has been around a little while though, but the Mosquitoes ships, I think that was a direct competition for the orbiting meta. It was interesting.
He counts people who haven't been putting the practice in.
Practice? Yeah.
No. Spice Rub with the strafing.
Oh.
you gotta get used to someone doing that. Oh, there's
His ship also has just an absurd amount of strafe.
It's only like 650 tons as well.
Does it have 70 meters of second of strafe?
I don't know. It's a
That's
lot.
the point.
It's yeah.
Not this ship. That was.
It was fun to watch. It was
heavier and lighter throughout the ages.
He says 90 meters a second in strafe. I can see that. There was a lot of up and down. Now
The light ship too.
in it, yeah. And am I right in saying you ran the single rail variant for all but that last fight, Spice Rub? Because we saw, I think it was just a single rail and then 5 lasers, if I remember right.
No, 4 lasers.
I think it was 5. Come on.
There's some on the wings.
There was 4 on the wings, and I think there's one hiding in there, some in the nose somewhere. Or is it just 4?
Shooting with his laser rifle.
Well, there's that.
He loves his handguns. He'll happily jump out of his ship to glack you.
Yeah. He was trying there at the end, trying to get Ace.
You can get in and out of his cockpit.
Is it 4 or 5 lasers, Spice Red?
It's 4. We thought it was 5 at first, and then we looked at the front, and it was only 4.
Gotcha.
I think Spicer has a 4 auto version.
Well, that's old.
3. What?
He's just capping.
He had a 4 auto back when autocannons were the only guns that were reliable. That's what everyone was using. If you put lasers on
No
back
cap.
then, it
On
would've
God,
been
fam. All right. Somebody was complaining earlier. The only reason I'm even here at Origin was just for this, so there'd be something to watch on the stream. And somebody was complaining earlier about the auction house not having stuff. So, all right. What else? What am I missing here on the armor subject?
You've got the shape,
Shape.
the actual shape of your ship, yeah. I mean, you could do box, but anyone who even slightly aims their ship will be able to hit you.
Sphere
Or you can go wedge.
would be best in that case. But,
Sphere.
A sphere?
Sphere has the least surface area for its volume.
Teardrop is the best shape, technically, but it's hard to
Yeah,
build.
but it's also the exact shape and picture of like what of a grouping that someone aims at. So
Yes.
it's
It's all the symmetrical ones.
silhouette matters quite a bit actually. Again, you're talking about Spice Rub. If we talk about him enough, we're already fucking out. But like,
Well, he-
his
You
ship's
know,
small. His ship's small, narrow, thin, and he's going up and down and left and right. And all
Well, he
those
could jump in here and talk to us, and if he wants.
You're funny, dude.
No,
I've been in call with him before. He's alright. He's cool.
He's cool. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He jumped in to fight us, help fight with TCC, I think.
Oh, weird how normal he sounds on call versus in chat.
Yeah, his is a slim profile. It's designed not to be easy to hit at. And of course,
How was I
obviously he's
doing?
not running armor, so he doesn't care about
How much?
having to. He doesn't have to bulk it out.
What is ice supposed to cost?
But yeah, there's another thing that's also. Well, I don't know if you guys did, but one of my armor solutions is actually have like the generators be part of the armor.
I think that's just level of redundancy in the order that you designed them.
Well, yes, but like, look at this. It's like, it's a heatsink, then there's an aluminum plate hidden here.
Let me bring up the Discord. Hold on.
Hmm.
Give me a second. Too many windows.
Get all the seconds.
I got all the seconds. All right, now I have to push more buttons. Too many buttons.
Just make like another one in OBS, just like. In the meantime, yeah, no errors. Good.
There we go.
So, here, if a rail fires, it first passes through the heatsink, and then it would have to pass through an aluminum plate, and then has to pass through my generator. So,
I will though.
yes. So what happens when I fire it? It passes through, and like this generator unit stops before it hits the rod.
Yes.
Cubes are the heaviest ones, though.
Yeah, you
Are they really?
Yeah.
They're heavier?
Yeah.
Why?
Because Starbase.
They have the
Because-
same. They have the same. Oh god.
Oh, God, indeed.
Tier 2 is sort of
They should be
heaviest.
lighter. That's funny.
Tier 2 is the heaviest fuel chamber.
No, the heat sinks. The
Oh.
square heat, the cube heat sinks.
So goofy.
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 Is that the only goofy thing you've run into in Starbase?
Yep. Everything else is very.
Everything else is very normal.
For this, if
If you actually make it a 1K, I wouldn't recommend using the cubes too much, although I just have to use a few of them just for neatness.
if there were to
How much
remove
heavier are they though?
like by the way, what would happen is it would go through the generator and hit this fuel rod. So yeah, there's the reason why there's the aluminum plate.
Bentley, the difference is 2 ducks worth of weight.
2 ducks? I mean that.
Like, probably like actual ducks, but like I mean like the ducks.
And
you
then you
put on
times that by like 6, because you're probably running 6 or maybe 3 or whatever the fuck it is, and it all adds up if you're trying to make 1,000 kilograms
the-
or 1,000
I mean,
tons.
We get a hint of Kai getting into coding for Starbase, and already he's being spammed with suggestions and more responsibility. Well, yeah, that's how all the games work, right? As soon as anything comes out, we're full of suggestions.
Well, he's very used to ignoring us and doing what he thinks he needs to do. So don't worry, like he's fine.
He's fine.
He's doing toe beams right now. He's gonna work through his pet peeves first, I think.
Toe beams?
Yeah. He hates the change of the toe beam.
Wait, what?
They nerfed it, didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah.
I've never.
It was a bit ridiculous, but it was fun as hell. I was like towing like ships around with my fighters.
Oh,
Put
yeah.
toe beams on my fire. Like it was great. And you can like put them on really like they're just really modular. You could put them on. You could tow little things around, and they didn't have the little. For whatever reason, they weren't bouncing around either. Like they just trails.
Like, good ship handling.
No, the elastic band. Like when you're flying around.
Yeah, where it's like you have to slacken it, and it's like and you shouldn't play the accordion with the ships.
That's great, but like it looks like it's vibrating behind you, and it's about to travel to Estelle through warp travel, and before it used to just work. I don't know about you, I prefer it when it just works, not when it YOLO fucking yanks into the back of your ship just because you slightly twitched your thing.
Let's
Either
see.
way, it used to work. It used to be better on the PTU, and then after they nerfed how much it could pull, it like also started to jerk around. Like when it first came out, I was like flying up above Moon City and finding like old wrecks where like people had been like shot out their cockpits and stuff, and I was just grabbing them and pulling them away, and I had no issues. It was really fun. But thankfully, Kai agrees with me, and well, the sounds of it, he doesn't want it to be that way. I think he also wants people to be able to actually like tow crates and stuff at his events that he hosts.
Oh, I think we should just leave his plate empty for a while until he
He can, can't he?
Yeah, I mean it's one dude. Let's let him work at his own pace.
One dude and one slight decimal point in the wrong place could just absolutely brick everything.
Yeah.
Stop moon mining from working again or something.
I don't have any confirmation, but my theory is always it's just a file that has to be written to whenever something gets mined, and it just at some point fills.
No, I think it's just the guy who was on furlough.
I
Getting back.
think he's just on furlough.
That's
pretty
all it was.
funny.
There wasn't anyone to work on it.
That's pretty funny.
Don't overcomplicate it. But yeah, with Kai like learning the ropes, I don't think he should be like, like let's fix the damage model or like let's completely rebalance the economy of the game now. I think he's just going to change a few numbers and a few things and maybe change some things around.
All right, so Ace brought up the point, and you brought it up earlier, Bentley. You talked about shape, and this isn't so much armor, but really ship design is about hiding all of your squishy parts behind the pilot or hidden deep within the ship. That's sort of using everything as armor. The rest of the ship parts as armor. Now,
and explosive parts.
the explodey bits.
To buffer a pilot. Yeah.
Explodey bits as far away as possible, hence the magazines are in the back.
Yep. Now, are there any of the devices or machines that actually work as decent armor? That actually can sustain a couple of hits? Because I know the Ace Crystal ship, the Hadron, I think they called it, and Vega's ship had all of like a big portion of their devices seemed to be exposed, and those ships they both took just like a hell of a beating.
They're bigger, man.
Find the one
The bigger they got to remember that they're using more of their weight limit, more redundancy, more component parts.
Yeah.
Heavier plates in certain areas, which wouldn't even fit onto a 1K. Like there would be no surface area to put them onto 1Ks.
Gotcha. Let's see. Plasma thrusters are very strong, but they're too heavy. Yeah, I agree with that. What does Spice Rub say here? For a year and a half, my ship had batteries on the nose. There isn't a reason out there for armor insecurity.
Yeah, this ship here, it flies.
It's 'cause
The
he's got some
batteries
thoughts.
on the nose, huh?
Hmm.
That seems.
Oh, yeah.
What was the reasoning for that, other than just to whip it out, just so that he could?
There's a clip in one of his videos where he rams someone and batteries pop out the nose.
Oh, and he has the detonator. Yeah, that's actually genius.
He's I remember he used to take the piss out of us for using lots of char. He used to like call us all sorts of derogatory names relating to char. And I remember when I first ever like just found one of his ships like not exploded, I like looked at the materials to see what he actually used, and it was all Gesium as I expected. And then right on the front, just one plate on the front was Lucium. And I was like, the motherfucker won't even use char instead of Lucium. Just he's got everything super cheap and fine, and he's put this like one plate here. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
Just in case.
The
He
had
did live in armor.
the Hadron has 10 explosion zones that do not stop the ship from functioning. 10 explosion zones. So you've got it built into the shape of the ship that there's 10 different places that can get hit without. How many of those have to go before the ship stops functioning?
A lot, I assume.
Well, yeah, I would assume a lot.
Yeah. If you want an
Thanks, Vega.
example,
Roughly 6 rails, 4 plasmas, and 4 autos, if I remember correctly.
see the magazines on the Sirius.
Either 4 battery zones or 3 propellant zones. That's a. I was shocked how little of the ship was left, and you could still maintain control. But all right, I'm trying to think of any other questions. We've talked about plate positioning, plate sizes. You've talked about how important the mass is to the magic HP within a given plate. We've talked about positioning. We've talked about railings, and we've talked about materials. What other aspects here of armor need to be taken into account when making one of these PvP or tournament ships?
You can see what good practice said.
Praxis. Oh,
Is
he's
it
in the chat. Yeah, give me a sec.
Ship cannot fly after explosions, but will not win the fight, which is, I think, a good point. Sometimes it might be better to actually win the fight first and not even let the thing get exploded in the first place.
Yeah.
Generally,
Yeah.
my philosophy on the design.
My philosophy is if you can't have enough armor, have enough redundancy.
Oh, of course. That's how you make a miner or something redundant. But
The thing about redundancy, especially in small fighters, is if you're already gonna lose a part, if you need to space out your parts, you already are making a compromise. And so if you lose that section of your ship because the armor's thinner or something, you're already down to like 40% capability. So you might as well just make it still last a little longer at 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for example, my prop tanks here, they have the YOLO in it. The rails, for example, rail cannons wouldn't fire, the lasers might not fire. So
yeah,
basically, if you
flying
get hit,
bullets. Really, flying bullets practice. That's what I like.
but you get a big boom.
Or bombs. And that's the thing, right? So is that redundant?
Well, that's not redundant, but if the prop tanks get shut off, the redundancy doesn't matter. You've lost your YOLO. But
you've-
like the magazine here,
Yeah, I understand, but now you have no armor, and any shot, very likely a follow-up shot from the same burst that blew up the ammo mag in the first place,
prop tank.
is going to hit the prop tank. And you could have had like 2 or 3 more layers of armor there. If you
Yeah.
just squashed the magazine down. If you want good like certain level of redundancy is obviously like great. Bowtie has it as well. Like one side can explode,
Yeah. This
one
should
side,
pass.
and then it'll still fly and kind of shoot guns. It's
Yeah.
a bit,
You lose three
I want to give it credit, Penguin, but like it's kind of struggles when half the ship's been blown up. But
Yeah.
that has a certain level of redundancy and like free space in between it. But like
That was an accident, just because
if you try to space out every single explosive component in that ship, like it would be twice the width,
Exactly.
My
40%
favorite,
the height.
Yeah, but my favorite example of redundancy is still this one. This flies. Generator's not formed.
I mean, yeah, I've seen ships that fly like that. Can it kill anything?
Tech, it has two. It would have one laser at least, and it had 2 rail cannons, but I
Oh shit.
unbolted them because I had to fix a dragon wing. But yes, it had one laser, 1 rail cannon, so it could technically do damage, but part of the fire control group Skansky. So
Praxis says being flyable after an explosion can only help you on live server when you have a teammate that can save your ass. So
Agree.
yeah,
It's like, at what point is this ship going to shut down? You've lost so many prop tanks, you've lost so many fuel. How much distance does it have left to fly? Or is this just a technicality? In a tournament, I guess you can make the argument, yeah, if it's still flying, you're in, and it's up
You
to
can
them to
still
continue to
ram.
kill you.
You can
What's the
still-
point if you can't help your teammates.
But
You
It's,
can
like it's a cost equation of what you can get in place of it. So, like, if you have to
You
make it
can still
redundant,
fly
make
if
it
it's still
redundant.
a distraction.
Yeah, but you cannot get to that point. is the point. It's like if you're in a equal battle, like 3v3, you're in that ship, and all your teammates are in that ship, and then someone out, and your other team is composed entirely of non-redundant but heavily dense armor mass like blobs. You're really relying on luck on trying to penetrate through that versus where they're going to continuously attack you and reduce your combat effectiveness like continuously over time. They're gonna drain you.
Potemkin has a good point. There's a big difference between tournament PvP and in live PvP.
On both.
Yeah.
I've done both quite a lot. Yeah, where that matters, I feel like, is if, like I said, miners, infantry ships where you're actually trying to like transport people to like a battlefield. Obviously, you want that to be redundant because you don't want to.
You don't want to lose everybody.
Yeah, like, you don't want to lose everyone that dies. The bigger a ship gets, the more appealing redundancy gets too, because like you've just got the space, like you can just fill it out. But like if you take another big ship that goes the opposite way, like Borg Cube by Nomads, that thing has like this just monstrous little like armored core in the center. I think it uses large gens now. And then a massive shroud of even bigger armor, and that thing takes fleets to kill it sometimes because there's just so much material that you must break, and not everyone can coordinate at the same time to deliver the necessary damage.
And
that's the 10,000 ton ship or something, And if you're investing all your money into 10,000 ton ships, like I've got a feeling you're going to get swarmed eventually and die. So like, and not everyone is good enough to be like trusted with such an expensive ship either, on live anyway. There's a balance to it.
Ace, that makes a bunch of sense. You need the redundancies where PvP isn't necessarily the goal here, but it's surviving unwanted
Encounters.
PvP. Yeah, it's non-consensual PvP where it's just survival. Then redundancies certainly. If it's really about escaping or helping somebody else escape by buying time, that's a different story to consenting PvPers.
I've got a plasma hauler like that. It's designed not to like damage the crates at all if anything explodes, so that I could potentially go back and fight for the fucking thing, try and get it back. So I don't actually want to see all my ore go up in flames. A lot of people put like the prop tanks right down the middle of their like big crates.
Oh yeah.
Well, the two
It just takes everything with it.
either I can get it back, or if I can't have it, you can't have it.
Well,
Yeah, but I can go back and take it back and stop them from having it. Which is content, which this game is in desperate need of.
desperately needing, yeah.
And it also how it doubles up as making it so that my ship continues to fly as like your ship does for excess amount of time while taking damage, which is something you would want on like a plasma hauler that's meant to run the gate
Yeah.
or something along those lines. Something maybe like a kiting ship. If you want to talking like Doggo's ship with turrets, then I feel like redundancy is the only option I think he has to make it like still fly, still move at a relatively good speed, and still have armor on the turrets which need the protection. So it makes sense for that to be redundant. But fighters, like the small ships, designing around redundancy, you're just adding more space, more weight, and you're just making it easier for good practice or me, or Faraway, or Pink Goo, or Pegrin, or Proxy Mine, or Spice Rub, or Abominator, or anyone who's put like any amount of hours into this game.
It
They,
depends.
they will blow you up.
If you just have ducts on absolutely every beam, it's very hard, for example, to get a network separation.
I mean, sure, but you are aware, like, I can aim at specific parts of your ship, right?
Yes, but you'd have to cut like basically every beam or duct to actually.
No, I
get...
just got to shoot all the juicy explosive components until you can't move anymore, and then I get
No.
an even easier time shooting you.
Well, yes.
That's
But
the issue. Like your damage debilitates your ability to fight.
Yeah, that's
so you've got to decide, like in direct combat situations, like, and yeah, that's sure it's a tournament, but like, what do you think is going to happen once the siege starts? Like everyone's going to be the safe zones are going to drop. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think you're going to have a load of like a trickle of redundant ships flying in and out, or are you going to have like 20 or 30 armored like blobs like land right on you, and you won't be able to kill them in time before they achieve their objective? Like, if you have an objective to achieve with a ship, like for instance a fighter is designed to kill other ships and not die, like you may as well just do with the redundancy out the window and focus instead on making sure that it never becomes an issue in the first place, as well as maybe making it like,
well, I mean,
cost
there's
efficient too.
there's definitely there's so some of this is what you're talking about is skill as a pilot on top of that, because sure, a pilot with a really redundant ship that's really hard to crack and has a good pilot is hard to beat even with a lot of ships, but a really good pilot against a mediocre pilot, it doesn't matter what the two ships are in. Even if you have the littlest, single rail or single laser ship and you're a good pilot and the other guy isn't, it doesn't matter what he's got. You're eventually going to whittle him down until he's useless. So redundancies might, the only thing I see is if you're a fantastic pilot and you have a ship that's redundant, that's because you tend to be a solo. I'm going to say pirate, but that's not necessarily the term. You're a solo fighter, and you're fighting against large.
Repair of the ships, like when we didn't have repair bays, but
right.
We have repair bays now.
Right, you have repair bays now. So little ships are probably the easier way. They don't need a ton of redundancies. You just need to be able to put DPS. You need to be apply damage and replace the ship as quickly as possible. At least that's my theory. But redundancies are good if you're trying to get away. Not so much if you're the attacker. Like, they're just unnecessary. And now, I haven't done much PvP or any real live PvP in Starbase, but like I've said before, my game of choice is EVE Online, and that's all PvP all the time. And I have always been just throw ships at it. Yeah, you got to be a good pilot, but you can just throw the crappiest ship, and you'll find that most people panic. Like, somebody that doesn't want to be in PvP will tend to just panic the moment PvP starts. And it doesn't matter what ship they're in. They could be in a fantastic ship. The moment they start panicking and they don't know what to do, you can be in the littlest thing and still pick them off.
That's the thing, though. When you start out, you're not going to be able to build or afford a big ship that has.
No.
It's just not a factor. Like, you're not going to be able to have one. And if you are building one, it's going to be a miner or a hauler.
Yep.
Like, that's what you'll be able to afford. Especially if you want anything with over 10 guns and you don't have the ability to craft the parts, then you're really fucked. That's like a 2 million ship, like right there. Like, so redundancy. I think the main point is redundancy requires space. Like, it takes up more space, and then you've got to plate that space. Like,
Yeah,
unless you like go really compartmentalized and it's like have like, you know, nacelles, like that you have like in different sections with like completely no plates in between. That's a very weird design. I haven't really seen anyone try that.
I think you'll find that
And you've got
people.
beams.
I think you'll find that players who do more PvP, who enjoy the PvP side of it, who aggressively go out for PvP, fly very different ships than ship designers who think that they're going to do PvP. There's a big difference, the application of it, as opposed to, you know, I'm in the designer and I'm slapping parts on it because it makes sense. And sure, on paper, a lot of those redundancies do make sense, but once the rounds start flying, a lot of that stuff just you realize that was a lot of wasted time.
They might add back things too, like back in the like back when radiators had coolant in them.
Yeah.
You actually had to give a shit about pipes because you wouldn't just lose propellant, you would lose coolant in your radiators too, and your ship would shut down. So like, that's where a lot of the lack of trust in redundancy comes from. Like, it didn't like redundancy also used to increase the chance of that happening. You know, more redundant radiators normally just meant that when they got shot, they started leaking. So you kind of had to like contain it down. And at the moment, it's, you know, not much of a factor anymore. Like, you know, propellant leaks don't really matter. But like, I feel like they're going to change that. I feel like that's something that they might have to reconsider in balance. And when they do, like, you could have a nice big redundant, you know, multiple prop setup on your ship. But like one well-placed nick to the one pipe that you got in your ship, and suddenly it starts spitting its fuel out everywhere. That prop tank's useless.
Ace Crystal says he doesn't fully agree with it though. He sees redundancy as almost free armor at the expense of only a small amount of weight and more engineering time.
Yes.
So beams are light.
Perfect example of it. Ducts
Air is heavy.
They take up no extra space, and it makes it way harder to separate like the FC from the thrusters.
So you and Vega, I mean Ace and Vega, right? You guys are advocating for this, and look at the size of your ships versus the average size. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not insulting the size of your ships. They are
No.
very, very redundant.
Yeah,
they're
they're
very easy to hit, right? So there's trading off. There's a trade-off there.
well, and that's
you can still
that's-
can still do it on
Oh,
on
who's
very,
here?
very
Oh.
small ships.
hi Ace.
Yeah, I'm here. I heard things about coolant and radiators, and I thought like, ooh, that's nice. Like in the Dragon Wing that I built back in the days when you had radiator coolant leaking out of your ship, we actually made like 5 or more different loops inside of the ships going to each radiator, so that if a radiator got voxel damage, it would not bleed your whole ship.
Is
Yeah,
that
nightmare.
buttons?
And the only thing that it added was like instead of doing ducts on one side of a beam, you put them all around your beam so that you have 4 different 4 different networks running alongside a single beam.
Well, I can definitely see how it. I don't think anybody is negating the value of redundancy, but everything in this game and most games is a trade-off, and I think the what Bentley and Pegrin are willing to trade off is survivability in the moment, as opposed to applying damage. You know, they're going to be able to apply a ton of damage, and they're willing to lose that because that's the way PvP works. You know, you're flying a smaller, faster ship with the express intent of blowing somebody else up, and you're flying a survivable heavy ship with the intent of making it out of it alive. It's just a different. It's not that either one is more valid, but it's which way are you, which side of that argument do you want to be on?
Well, if
Yes,
you
I
question
do
which one
believe-
do you trust? Do you trust your skill more, or do you trust?
Well,
the ship?
and there is a bent to that. And you know, if you are a fantastic pilot and you know you're great, you don't need all that shit. But if you know that you're in the middle pilot, or you know that you're going to take some damage and you're willing to give up a few things to survive a little longer, to maybe fight it out a bit longer. So it is a skill thing, and we all have different skill levels. But and you know, to me, I don't think either way negates the other validity. It's just very different approaches to the same kind of concepts.
Yes, I fully agree with that. I do agree that like ship designs that Beggar and that Good Praxis and Spice are flying are just like cost efficiently way more efficient to fight a battle with.
Oh yeah, it's one of
But
those.
like yeah, but like we don't have those skills to get that, and instead of spending like hundreds of hours of shooting on the PTU, we are more of the engineering and discovery type, trying to find out new ways to achieve something that we are enthusiastic about, instead of just firing the whole
Yep.
evening. So
What?
that's what the game makes fun for us.
Or you make
Yeah.
10 cheap ships and then you put the player that you're trying to make better in the 10 cheap ships and then they get 10
Well,
times the amount of
but
flight
it's
time,
well, yeah,
getting experience.
but yeah, that's what he's saying is though.
That's why we've got such a skill dense team and like a clique of people that hang out together. Not all of us started out good.
Well, no,
I was
no.
For me,
horrendous. I was
obviously.
Spice. I was Spice. I was fucking horrendous. I used to shoot behind them all the time. This is how
But-
it used to be. But like,
well, it's not only.
because I flew very compact, very reliable in the moment ships that were also a lot cheaper and a lot smaller, and actually punished people who had skill issues themselves by being smaller. I was able to get better. That's the difference.
Well,
If you're just flying around being a damage sponge and you'll be a nice big target, even a novice fighter can hit you because you're bigger, like easier to strike. You're not learning to fight, you're learning to get hit.
well, yes,
That-
yes.
That's
a really
a bad
good point.
mentality to have if you actually want
It-
to win in fights.
Well, but a lot of these design guys are going to be very different concept where they don't go into these fights with the same concept of it's
If
either
a ship
just
is
fun.
going to be hit, like if it's a ship that's getting to the point of a size like there's like there's a curve to it. Like once you get like to like the mid range of ships,
Yep.
you can start saying, okay, you know what, I'm not gonna have all of my gens in one big bundle in the center where someone can just aim right at it and blow
Right.
it up. I'm gonna separate them into two sections and like, you know, continuing on to that. But there is this, it's very like a sudden drop on either side. Like
Oh
if
yeah.
you're- if you're before that threshold, you really should not be thinking about redundancy. Like there's so much more valuable stuff that you can surround your ship in with a core of like, you know, like explosive components, like more thrusters on fucking Spice Up ship, or more armor, or, you know, more YOLO. Like YOLO's redundant, you don't need all of it. Like if you've got like some advanced YOLO on your ship, all of that stuff can be like layered in like in an order of like what's important, and then condensed into a very tight, compact design that is hard to hit and is also
Yes.
got very dense mass of armor, like for its size. Some of the plates we use are like we pick them because of their density rather than like their any special, you know, magical meta properties, because they just provide a good amount of solid, reliable defense for the amount of space they take up, and as a result, like, you know, even a good player who has really fantastic aim, it only takes like a little tiny bit like of damage to like start throwing your aim off, and suddenly that bow tie that's only a fuel rod thin is really hard to hit, and you start missing and you start having skill issues. But like if you're, once you get to the big ships, then sure, like I agree, like you get to that point where like anyone is going to hit you. You're like a heavyweight boxer, like you're not Floyd Mayweather. But like,
Yes, but it's the same
but
for
talking
like
but talking to like the context of the actual tournament that we, you know, all played in, and how it all played out, like the big ships got targeted very aggressively and they got killed. It's that sort of like thing. Like you got to ask yourself, what is the purpose of big ships really? I think, like, what do they do? I feel like their purpose is station defending and stuff like that. Like,
You also have
I
to
can
add
imagine a lot of it. I can imagine it would actually end up like with people defending ships and cap ships and all that crap. You know, having very heavily armed, like redundant ships that can be pulled in and out of the hangar to be repaired over and over and over again. You know what I mean? They never die. They just
Yeah.
endlessly get resupplied, like repaired, or at the very least stored for later. You know, so you don't lose it. and you don't give your anyone else any
I
like.
was
weapons.
kind of under the impression that really big ships don't have a place in Starbase until I started fighting against I think Faraway it was that pulled out these huge, like 30 plasma ships.
He's got some beasts, yeah.
That's like crazy. Like we kept spawning new fighters to try and take it out, and it took like I don't know eight of our fighters to get it down, together with good praxis.
Yeah, the problem is costs. Like that. Like,
Oh yeah, for sure.
But-
like if you take Pink's pig, Pink's got that absolutely disgusting exutium plated, fucking. What? How many railguns? I can't remember. It's too many.
So you brought up a good point there.
Xbox, or?
You brought up a good point there with cost, and I think that's also a big difference between the engineering players and the PvP focused players. Is engineering
Yeah, plates are
players,
cheap.
well, not only that, not only that, but engineering players tend to be industrialists, economic players, and they just tend to have a ton of money where the cost is irrelevant. You know, so they don't care about the cost. I can make this ship be as ridiculous as possible, and I can eat the cost. Where somebody that's just pirating and isn't doing the market work or the mining or the they don't have the money to throw away. Pirates never have money to throw away. Not never, but
Like I got a cool example with ITC where there was another cargo crate event at Republicta some time ago, together with the market event, and we used a Dragonwing after the event to try and get all the valuable stuff out from all the different members. And ITC decided to hot drop us with a bunch of fighters, and we were even full with ores and stuff. And now we aren't the best shooters, but I guess ITC is also not the best shooters and don't have the best fighters.
Right.
But we were fighting with the Dragonwing full of ores, while it isn't meant to really go out and do a PvP battle with. It is just a functional ship that does a lot of functions while only having to print one single ship. And this ship we use for towing, we use for salvaging, we use for a little bit of pickaxe mining, we use for getting things past pirates. And this was exactly a case where ITC started blocking us the whole evening, and we just got Dragonwings out and got all the stuff out and destroyed 9 of their fighters that evening, while we lost none of our Dragonwings.
Yeah, or another cool story was, I think a Douglas Adams it was. That's a mining ship, a decently large one, and not a skilled, like a kind of new player, and like he managed to, I think, take out like 3 from Biohazard before the ship lost. He lost the ship because it was built that well.
Was it Betty Raston shaped?
It's the Douglas Adams is basically a box with thrusters pointing.
No, no. I mean, did they kill Betty Raston shapes? Because they fly on like they used to fly on a tripod ship with a ridiculous amount of plasmas and autos.
I think he ended up losing it by pilot. He got sniped from the cockpit.
whoops.
Ouch.
So
It's a stinger.
that's it's always interesting to have these conversations where there's obviously 2 schools in here. We've got the design, and I'm not saying that Bentley and Pegrin, you're not designers. That's not but you're functional designers, where these are very focused ships, and like Ace Crystal was saying, a lot of their stuff is more intentionally general purpose, intentionally over designed to take advantage of all of that stuff. You're never going to find a ship that Vega makes that has less than like 100 YOLO chips in it. It's just it's a different concept to the same things, and I think it's all because what we find fun is different. I'm always amazed at when people complain about pirates in general, how they're ruining the game for everybody, and PvP is such a waste, and it shouldn't be allowed in
It's barely even a plural.
right.
It's like pirate singular and one time online maybe.
But
Responders.
right, but they really hate it, and I've been those characters. Like, I currently don't do any PvP, but inside I really want to shoot everybody I see, and it's and I can understand from both sides where the the PvP portion of games like this is not fun for everyone. So they don't build ships with that in mind. And when they do build ships in mind for PvP, it's like a 90% defensive PvP, and then I stuck some guns on it. Does that make sense? Like the PvP is really the afterthought. It's the defense that comes first. What if I'm gonna get shot? How do I survive this long enough to get back to the safe zone? And maybe I'll take out a couple of ships.
Yeah. And then how do I get them to leave me alone?
How do I get them to leave me alone, right? And a lot of that is true. I mean, a lot of PvP in games like this ends up being that it's very it's only PvP until they shoot back, and then everybody runs away. You know, it's I only want to shoot at unarmed players, and sure, that's no fun, but the guy that's shooting at you thinks it's fun.
I mean,
I don't-
spent a few times flying around with my spawner on trying to get someone to shoot at me. But
Right?
It does be the fucking courtesy.
I think it's sometimes fun to be the one who to fly us through a danger zone. It's like, "Oh, I might get shot at."
Yeah, well, yeah, but you've chosen that. Like you're like, this is the time when I think I'm okay to be shot at. I've prepared to lose this, as opposed to I'm flying this really expensive thing where I shouldn't be flying it.
Dragon Wing's a reasonably expensive ship, and I got it blown up last cargo crate event.
Yep.
But we used another Dragon Wing to tow it back.
Go it back.
So
Then I stole off a series the rail cannon, and then I painted the part that blew up white.
But that's the thing, right? That's the one thing you've got to bear in mind. All it takes is one player who puts, let's say, I don't know, 30 hours of practice with like a small ship,
yeah,
and then prints 30 T1 little ships. He could still get you.
oh yeah.
Oh, for sure.
He's
yeah.
not going to lose anything trying to do it.
And I can speak to
So-
that. I can, I don't know, I guess it's 8-10 weeks ago I started PvPing with Praxis, and I can see the improvement dramatically, even with just, a few hours here and there. Like,
Think as well, that person's getting better each time they try to do that too.
yeah, unless you're fighting
Right.
Praxis, and then it's frustrating because all you do is die.
And that's
Yeah.
how you get good. That's why they used to flash me.
All I do is die. But it was funny, there was one day we were messing around and I was fighting with Praxis, and a bunch of people that weren't Praxis showed up, and I realized I don't suck as bad as I thought I did. Like when I fought regular people, it was a little bit easier. But then, like, I don't know, Scipion showed up one day and Bentley was there a couple of days. I still suck, but I suck less than I did, and I can really see the difference a little bit of practice does make. But if you're doing it on your, like, we were on the PTU, so I wasn't losing any money, but I can see on your own dime throwing away a whole bunch of ships would be very, very frustrating, even to
Yeah.
just practice.
Or if you're
We-
trying to actually run an actual combat company that does it as a thing, like I had to build a lot of combat ships for various events for people because
Yeah, I would like to
they would only be intending to drop on, like they're not.
I would love to see some events like that were more like battle royales that last like 90 minutes or something, where you just fly in and it's just all
Rover, we
Yeah.
had that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know, whatever.
well, and I necessarily I don't want to see like 50 guys fighting at each other, but more like you've got two teams and anybody can join any like they're loose teams, let's call them, but we just keep. It's like a never-ending 3v3, if that makes sense. When one of your team dies, a new one comes in. So it's always 3v3, but it kind of never ends. Does that make sense?
I mean, the first and second crate events were like that before Haven got covered in safe zones. That was glorious. That was like 100 or 200 people all just flying in and out constantly doing nothing. but
Yeah,
fun.
I can see. You know what I mean?
And
I don't.
And then float down from their wrecks and land on the surface and get into a PvP fight on ground too.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see some events like that. And we can't really generate hundreds of people anymore, but we could probably do 30 or 40 guys maybe, where it's just and it's just
rails.
hmm.
Nothing. Joke.
But and I think that would be good for everybody in the game to get into some PvP where there's no real, and I don't want to say no risk because there is risk, but you're not going to be risking your Dragon Wings or your Hadrons or your tournament ships. You're risking little 2-4 laser ships that are going to cost
I'd
you a
rather
couple.
there was risk and lots of reward though. That's
Well,
what
the
makes the
reward thing,
tournament kind of
the
fun.
the reward in this game is there's not a ton of reward anymore. Like there's nothing to be rewarded with, is there? Like I guess money.
Armor.
Armor. Kai still hasn't handed it out, I think.
Well, yeah, but anything that's
Yeah.
generated by us as players isn't going to have those sorts of rewards. It's just going to be credits at most.
Yeah,
I can think of a few things that I could do that would be equivalent to that though.
What would
Yeah.
you
Like
do?
I suppose. What about like a station?
in
But
it
he's
was-
still kept in his thing. Like I always thought, like what if he made like a station for us all to like actually try and conquer, and then he just gave access to the people who conquered it,
That
and
would
only
be
they could like build. Only they could build on it. If you get what I mean. Like it's got an open safe zone so that PvP can happen there, but like the people who win the event get to build on the station and like, paint it, change it into their colors. The big bluff. Like look at me with
Oh yeah, I
diamonds.
mean, there's
Everyone
not
loves that.
there's
Everyone loves
nothing.
bragging rights.
Well, yeah, that's like the sovereignty. We talk about sovereignty and things like that. There's probably some stuff we could work into the game as
Yeah.
players that would functionally work like sovereignty. But
It would be very role
I
playing.
mean, like, imagine if he
But-
like actually like gave like I said, like gave build permissions to Haven to whoever like actually brought him the most crates like intact. You know what I mean? If he added that objective, like you got to bring him back his crates.
oh, I
Or you
got
could
yeah.
salvage it. You could
I mean,
salvage it.
but you could-
rip it apart if you want to, or you could try and win that little competition, and then like
I-
afterwards you would add all the participants who won like build rights, and then for like until the next event they can build whatever they want.
Yeah, and I like that idea, but that could even be done by us with just a character that's got, I have alt characters that have slots, where we could build a station.
Like part of the reward is that it doesn't take up one of your slots though. I think.
Well,
we're
yeah, I mean,
we're a little bit competitive right now. I don't know about you.
I don't, but it would be one of those things where I would just give build rights to whoever it is that wins the tournament. It could be Kai. Sure, it'd be great. It would be Kai, but the way I'm looking at it at this point, in my brain, the game is not under development, and I'm really, while things that Kai does are awesome, I try not to pressure Kai into doing more than he's already doing, if that makes sense.
Enough bullshit.
Hmm?
My experience is he just comes back with like really hard and really fast whenever he takes a break anyway. So as long as you just leave him alone when he's clearly not doing anything, you know what I mean? When
Right.
he's not
So-
actually like in that mode, he seems to like just leave him alone. But then when you see him actually active, I've noticed he seems to be a lot more interested in feedback. Like when he's actually like up to something, he seems to be asking a lot more questions. Actually checking in with the players and seeing if like we would like this change or that change. So
Interesting. So yeah, well, I mean, some of this we could probably at least start and do some things on our own, but I don't know. I think there's more to this and it might be worth looking into. So who knows?
Torpedoes, explosions. Wait until that fucking gets fixed. Oh my god.
What?
Oh my lord.
Explosions are fine as they are.
What deletion circles? Nah, they need to be real.
Oh, I thought you talked about the thing where they just said, "Yep, I've hit
Uh,
20 meters before they even hit anything."
oh, they need to fit. No, yeah, they need to fix everything, and they also need to make them real damage.
That's
and...
perfect. This means that the transcript doesn't need to be nearly as good.
Well, I would rather have them like hit. You gotta remember, I've got a taste for jousting now in my PvP. Like I don't really orbit fight as much anymore.
Oh yeah.
Really, really want to just launch 20 torpedoes ahead of me and just watch someone try to evade them. I think it'd be entertaining.
Yes, that works better.
But
with
right now, they just phase through the fucker and don't do anything.
Yeah,
Really
they just pop out the other side.
Or your ship explodes because it was slightly askew.
I mean,
So-
I had that happen where like I fired 2 torpedoes and then they hit each other.
Oh, I hate that. One lags into the other.
No, because it's tracking torpedoes and they tried to converge on the designator.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Pointing at each other.
I mean, I've also
Could
had things
fail.
where I tried to do a staggered system where you try to make them actually fire out like independently, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, And if you just have it a little too fast, they just explode in your face and kill you.
Actually, I
That's it.
literally had them explode in my face because they hit the laser designator and then decided, oh, the designator spammed me, I need to turn. and then they come flying at you. Or they lose so much speed and then they're behind you, then they try to follow and hit you.
Well, the laser designator can also lag behind too and hit your ship, and then for a split
No,
second,
not
tell 'em-
necessarily. It's
I've had it happen. I've had it happen. Like if you just get like that if you just get that unfortunate like maneuver and it's like your connection's bad, it like someone like when you're like flying past like 5 or 6 like LODs on like the Moon City surface. You remember I did a lot of my talk testing around Moon City shooting wrecks, so like I was dealing with a lot of LOD issues and loading and stuff.
Yeah, LOD issues and hosting and those sorts of things really can cause some issues with that. I
was shooting while moving, and
Yeah.
it just like bounced back into my ship and made the torpedoes 2 or 180 and fly towards me. It was quite lovely, wonderful
So-
to work. I really wish that it was that accurate with other people,
So
compared to like slamming straight into me.
let's see. Trying to think what else is there that we didn't cover or needs to be covered on the armor topic. So I think we've talked I think we've covered most of it. Is there anything else that we've missed, Bentley, on that particular topic?
Not that I can really think of other than really getting like obnoxiously sweaty and talking about specific plates.
I'm not into sweat.
That would be defeating the fun of discovering them yourself. Right?
I'm not into getting sweaty either.
And
That's
make
just
all the people who put all the effort into doing it feel bad as well. Because they'll be like, oh no.
Like most decorative plates, I thought are interesting.
And when you talk about decorative weapon types, all right, yeah, Penguin brought that up. Weapon types. We always talk about rails doing tons of damage to different plates, but can you explain the different weapon types versus different types of armor and why and how? And because I don't understand that either. Why do autocannon suck?
Low damage, like general. So like I said, you can just autocannons can be brute forced with HP. Like and the only way you can really counter that at the moment is more autocannons.
Gotcha.
Catch my drift.
Um,
They do like the lowest amount of voxel damage too, as well,
Gotcha.
And not so much ammo.
and
Um,
terrible ammo.
And when you have magazines, they are really big to either fit elsewhere on your ship or behind your gun.
Yeah.
It's like really big.
The only upside is they have a thicker, like a little like small like AOE like effect to them that is really good at like knocking loose things.
And
Destroying
really-
bolts, like just clipping pipes, and they have a really high rate of fire as well. So
Okay.
like
800, I
you can saturate an area very like heavily, like against something like sorry, I can't not butcher it. I'm just gonna call it the mosquito. Like autocannons against a shit like that, it's like
Yeah.
Tasty,
Alamo
like-
skull.
yeah, the mosquito.
And the
Like,
elbow.
those things, anything like that, autocannons are the best. Like or like front cockpits. Oh.
Yeah.
If you fight a ship that has like a nice central front cockpit and you've got autocannons, it's not a matter of if you will cockpit them, it's a matter of when.
I had like a fight that I remember, which I don't like to remember, but it was during one of the cargo crates on the moon, where I took out the Dragon Wing, a freshly printed Dragon Wing. I got into the fight. A guy was following me, so I did like a 180 turn to engage him, and the first autocannon bullet that hit my window killed me, like from blitzing through. It was
Yeah, they're nasty.
like so sad.
They are very nasty for that.
So somebody's asking, Mazra's asking, do ore cubes act as armor? Do they break up? Do they survive? Any idea how they
Pretty sure
function?
don't. I'm pretty sure they don't. I remember we'd said that as a joke to Bio, who wanted to know why one of our haulers was so tanky, and we told them that we had leukemia in the crates, and that made it tanky, and they got really mad about it. But I don't think it actually does, and I think THK tested it and said it didn't. I think like while there's like when you actually break a crate, like is there ore in it? I can't even remember. I
No.
don't think
No.
there is. Yeah, exactly. There's nothing there. Like it's just hollow space.
Well, he's not talking about ore crates. He's talking about ore cubes. Like if you were to put a cube out.
If you look at the actual stats of the ore, like that you can actually see that they have different like armor value, like an actual stack of ore, like but in your inventory. I
Yeah,
think.
like this.
Yeah,
Which
but if you
players
look at
do
it, if you look at it in your inventory, like Vega, if you just quickly like hover over it, it's see the armor value 0.
none.
Yeah, so you can see that like the actual physical things don't.
Tunim has. some.
Yeah, some of them do, but even still, for their weight, like it's probably not the best. If you get what I mean, like they have stats. So if that actually exists as a thing, just look at the stats of the stack in your inventory, and you can actually tell.
Probably
If
should.
you Mazra posted a picture of his particular ship, which he built live in space, outside of any station storage. So he doesn't have the ability to use station storage, just by his own set of rules. So if you bring up the picture, you can see his ship is just it's just covered in ore cubes.
What's this?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. The ship is huge too, and it looks really cool. But he's done it outside of station storage.
That's a Garth Zeta level thing right there.
That's a legend.
Let's get the show of this rap ship.
Maybe cap loading your ships with ore is actually like a good idea if you want to protect yourself. I don't know. I've never really tried it. I sort of rely on just speed. It's like the only real thing that gets you away.
And power.
Speed and
Speed.
redundancy for that sort of situation, funny enough.
And intimidation.
Oh no, they're not getting intimidated. Have
Yeah.
you ever been in a call with a pirate when they're chasing you?
I have designed the Dragon Wing to kind of like look like a fighter, so that Biohazard doesn't attack me, and I've been run multiple times.
Oh,
past
Biohazard are different. Biohazard are different. You could sneak in their direction, and they'd get intimidated.
Yes, exactly. So it worked. It was intimidation. The Dragon Wing looked like a fighter, and they didn't attack it, while there was miners going there.
A lot of others would go straight for it.
Yeah, it's got
Like,
such
oh
a
my god, there's thrusters. It's
Yeah,
coming
it's-
through the gate. I have something to shoot. I've been here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And they will be fighting you. You
It's-
could be in a battleship and they'd still be like, yeah, I'll have a crack.
I know, but I knew that if I designed it in this way, it would work on some.
And it looks yeah, when it was new, I'm sure just
It goes the other way though, because you've got people like me roaming around looking for fights, and if we see it, we're like,
Oh yeah,
"Ooh,
but you will be
that looks like a fighter. Oh my god,
Yeah.
someone with guns. I mean,
So-
really, it does have guns, so
Yeah,
like,
I'm not saying it's working against everybody, but the
Yeah.
slight percentage
think
that it
it
helps.
works
the
anymore
people you
against
want it.
PvP players.
Yeah, they all know it's got rails on it, and they all want them.
Yeah, but it's got such a great thruster trail that it just draws you in to want to shoot at it.
Yeah,
I think I
I mean,
accidentally
with
friendly
The arrow
fire.
pointing to where the ship is.
It's like
Dragonwing now, because it looks like a fighter, I would say people almost think, oh, finally someone who wants to do PvP.
Yeah, with the current players, I guess yeah.
If you want to get someone to follow you, the best way to do it is have a plasma engine. Oh,
yeah.
Well,
that's the goal. Yeah, like nothing gets Abominator sweatier and more excited than a plasma trail.
Trick to hide the plasma trail.
He's
right?
had so many lost to bugs and glitches too. He wants it even harder now.
Well, that's what spirals are good for.
Yeah, it doesn't look the same, but they know. But I remember we once theorized about making a bait ship. We were like, is it possible to make a single plasma ring? You know, is it how expensive is it? Like, is it cost efficient? Because if it was,
talked
we
about-
could have like a bait plasma on the back that would just give it the trail. You know what I mean? Just give it that plasma trail, and make anyone who was like actually looking to pirate like follow it.
Talk about bait ships and stuff. With Icarus projects, we've done a few funny things. Like we have a huge size the beginner ship, the laborer, but it's like really big. So in the distance, it looks like a small laborer, and you will engage it. And then we have like 10 people on it with tripods and stuff shooting at us. And we have doing the cargo crate events. We remade the bob crates, but they were like filled with warheads. So if a ship would go beside it, and you would detach any plate or the structural value would change, it would set off all the torpedoes flying off and like exploding, so they would delete neighboring ships. It's like very funny.
That sounds funny, yes. Have one of those, throw it in with a dragon wing, and hope you don't crash
Yes,
it.
we dropped a bench on the moon when one of the cargo crate events was, and we recorded some of them explode by a player coming up to it. It was really, really fun.
So, all right, guys, I am going to end up going to do some adulting this afternoon. So I'm gonna have to call it here. I want to say thank you for everybody that showed up today. I appreciate when you guys stop in. It's so much fun to actually talk to you guys about this stuff. So yeah, thank you, and thank you, Bentley, for informing us about the armor topic. I was completely unaware of any of the real nuance of armor and how all of that stuff goes, and I think it's interesting to learn that as somebody who just doesn't understand it. So I wanted to say thank you in particular. Thank you, Vega and Ace and Pegrin, and I think Praxis was here too. So
Silent.
Silent, yeah, he's the
reading.
strong silent type. So,
For those that haven't been listening, he has been giving some pointers in the chat.
yep, he talks about his kamikazes. There's googly eyes. That's proxy mine. Oh, it's got a band-aid too. I didn't notice that. I like the band-aid.
Very Borderlands.
I like it. Yeah.
He's got a host of ships. No one else makes more than him.
They look very, very cool. And this is his tournament ship, right? Yeah.
One of them.
One of them.
One of
What,
them.
you got, like 2 or 3, right?
More than that. He went nuts. He
Okay.
went nuts. 'Cause
Say less.
He was worried that he wasn't going to be able to attend, so he made like ships for other people to fly, didn't he?
Let's see, what do we got? 3 rails.
Oh yeah.
3 rails.
I think hits like 3 or 4 rails, I'll tell you that right now. Oh my god. I'm going to be flying some more expensive ships in the future.
It's named
Why do you
Raymond.
guys want them to get buffed? They're fine.
It's a joke. It's a
Oh,
joke.
Okay. I didn't understand.
I mean, I would like them to be changed. I don't think their balance is right, but they're definitely not weak. You just got to shoot people in the sides with a lot of them, like every other gun.
Like every other gun.
More efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, more like a railgun is all I want. I just don't like how they operate like
Just have like
shell.
a Gatling of railguns. You know, like
I-
20 railguns.
I can do
I
that.
am-
You can do that with levers.
Advance, bang.
You
I
can
am,
just do that with levers, man.
Curious though, Bentley, what your standpoint is on the railing or like the anti-railgun armor thing.
Oh, yeah.
Pardon, what?
Are
The
you
cable
like,
armor.
I do agree with like Spice Rep and other people that it is kind of like a strange behavior that maybe shouldn't be in the game, but I do also feel that it is a very fun element in the game that makes a cool rock paper sister against railguns.
It's more that, as you've probably noticed from reading in Starbase like any Starbase Discord like chat, there's too many opinions. if you listen to just voices, right? But if you go into a tournament and then you put cables all over your ship and then it's effective and people don't like it, well now they know what to change. Like you can't beat just a good old example. That's why they had the siege events. Like it's not just to find bugs and like problems with the game. It's also to find balance and actually figure out what the hell we want. Like I think a lot of people do agree that we don't want big, heavy, slow armor blobs. We would like, ships to fly around like spaceships so that we could at least pretend that we're Luke Skywalker and Star Wars, Like we do want a bit of speed, but like you're not gonna like know that that's actually a problem, or at least like Laurie or anyone like that is not gonna know that that's the change we want unless you can have like look at footage and just say, look, like, Collective, they won all their tournaments with a big box, and then along came Pink Goo and Faraway, and they flew in a big rocket box. You know what I mean? Like if they don't like that, you can change it. Same with these cables. Like they're not really the problem.
Just
Like
need to be
that's just collision. Collision damage is really high. Like in general, like We had to go through all of that min-maxing of putting a roll cage on it. We had to bolt absolutely every single thing with redundant bolts to make sure that, like, if anything got shot off, it still has enough, like, purchase to stay on. And we had to put the cables on to make sure that, like, that we could actually touch you before you touch us, and make sure that, like, we're losing, you know, invaluable stuff versus valuable. Like, we had to do all that just to make our ships take one ram really good. One love tap. And it only works because, like, other people have not gone to that same length, you know. But that's how you sort of point to that as a problem that needs to be changed. Like, it's an early access game. We're balancing it as we play, is the reality of the situation, in my opinion.
Yes.
Serious, didn't do it to that extent to mitigate ramming. I just did it to the extent of small beams all the way at the front, and then have like.
If you think I'm joking when I talk about the desync armor, I'm not. Like, that's what we originally used it for back when desync was way worse. Like, it used to happen, like, you know, 20% of the fights you were in, like, you would just, the first shot would fly through your ship, hit your generator, and blow you up. It was really horrible. Yeah, like, everyone used to be scared of it. Like, I think Toon Boost has lots of video of, like, his ships getting, like, unrealistically, like, shot inside and stuff like that. Like, nasty stuff. And THK found out that, like, if you just extend the hitbox of your ship as much as possible, like, it just happens less. He had a ship that had only one layer of char. Like, that was it. It was really heavy plates, but it was one layer of char that protected it, and then loads and loads of those spines. And he never got desynced in the ship. Like, it never happened to him because all the shots were registering. We put that on our ships because Kai said that there's going to be no pauses. You know, that's why Pink Goo has bigger ones, by the way, because his internet can be a bit shoddy now and then. Yeah, it's not as reliable. It's normally good, but not always. And then while we were flying around, you know, crashing into each other, we just realized that, like, the cables really hurt. So we were like, oh, so we don't have to be scared. So if anything, it just affected our strategy. We just weren't scared of rams. Like, if you flew at us in a straight line, we were just going to keep flying at you in a straight line. It's up to you.
Yeah, true. I felt that.
And it doesn't do that much damage. If you wanted to really do damage, you'd have spiky beams.
But like but about the Rogan armor, is that something you kind of like, or is that something you kind of think like? I
like the process of, like, the thought behind it. I think the game does that really well. Like, I feel like the research and development is right, and, like, it rewards someone like Vega, you know, sitting in the SSC doing science, like, actually trying to figure out, like, which component, which plate, and all that it works. It's just it's incomplete, and it means, like, in the stale state, like, the only progress we're going to make is going to continuously push a limit of the game. Is, like, all it is. But I mean, at the same time, if you understand how it works, you can also ignore it. Like, we ignored a lot of meta for our ships for this fight. Like, we knew that we were just going to have more opportunities to get free shots on people in the 3v3. So we were like, well, let's focus speed more. You know, we overthrusted our ships to shit. Like, that 4-rail Cthulhu that Scipion was flying that I made, that thing is like 70% generators and thrusters and guns. Way less armor than most of the other ships were flying. It just didn't get shot as much because it was really fast. So, and it doesn't have much railings either because it wasn't intending to get shot by many railguns.
Yeah, Proxy Mine here doesn't have any of those railings. He's just got big plates.
Yeah. Because it's like, you know, what has to be sacrificed for what you want. That's the good part of the game that's still there. It's just, I guess you could say the balance is just a little skewed. Like,
railings are good if you can guarantee it gets hit from this side and it gets hit from this side a lot. Then you want railings.
But yeah, like, the railing idea is good, but, like, I think we can agree, like, that's not, like, what armor is exactly like on what it's based on. And again, it doesn't have to be realistic, it just has to be immersive.
Yes, and I fully agree with that also.
And, yeah, process is immersive, but the actual result of the process so far has been going a little bit weird. Like, some of it is quite weird, I'm not gonna lie. I know a few plate techniques which don't work, kinda, and I don't use them because they're just too glitchy. I feel too bad. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're on the verge of being an exploit.
Yeah, there's a fine line between taking advantage and cheating.
Yeah, like some people have lower boundaries, but like
we have a bunch of tackles so that we kind of like decide not to use, and like some armor tech that is still like that there is still room for improvement.
yeah, or like things I've seen, like I know some things like where I've seen it clearly, just they're attempting to balance it out, and you're like,
Yeah.
like nah,
I still
I
think,
don't know.
I mean, it's not cheating. It's a creative interpretation of the rules.
Yeah, which is
Yeah,
often
until
called
people
cheating
are upset
eventually.
about it.
Yeah,
That's why I don't use my torpedoes
I
as much
got
anymore for my
approval to
inventory.
put the transponder there.
So
There's lots of things like that there. Like people don't like it, but I have the pocket torpedoes. Like, so like I've like I'm on a mission to get them working on ships like that until then.
But
Some people don't like that.
The Pegasus missile track's great.
So, well, all right, gentlemen, I'm going to call it here, and I want to say thank you once again, and you guys have a wonderful afternoon. I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll do this all again. So, you guys have a great night. Thank you again. Take care and take it easy.
See you in a bit.
See ya. Oh, I just got rammed by Proxy Mine. Very nice. Very nice, Proxy. Very nice.
Yeah, look,